All right. I am not entirely sure if we're live or not because this is the first stream that I am doing on StreamYard live for everyone. I've done a few unlisted ones and they seem to be working really well. And then yesterday we tried with Davirut and that completely fell apart, but that was internet problems. And I'm not sure if it was mine or his or whatever happened there. So we had to switch to Zoom. It was a whole nightmare. But I'm going to be doing StreamYard a little bit more because I want to be doing more conversations with people. And so this is where we are. Tiger Snakes, how you doing, sir? Lagalot, how you doing? Peter Pan, how you doing, sir? Tokoloshi, how you doing? Can you guys see me and hear me fine? Is everything working well? Or Lamborghini, how you doing? JS Afri, how you doing? Okay, I'm going to assume that you guys can hear me. DNX, how you doing, sir? There appears to be a little bit of camera lag when I do this. So the camera seems to be on 30 FPS, which is probably a limitation of the program itself. Avedon, how you doing, sir? No, we can't see you. Just kidding. In favor for slime to rule the country. Sonic Walk, how you doing? Howell as well. In Projects Associates, how you doing, sir? Truth Seeker, how you doing, man? Yeah, you loud and clear. Penny, how you doing? Very happy to be with all of you. Today's stream is going to be a normal. I'm not using OBS. I'm trying out. I'm kind of using you guys as like a taste, a proefkonijn, as they say in Afrikaans. I'm using StreamYard just because next week, Thursday, we have Matthew Cohen coming on the show, and I want to do more shows with other people. And most people in South Africa don't have Discord. And so I have to find a different way of being able to do streams with people. So hopefully this one works. Mrs. in early labor, Avedon, congratulations, sir. Congratulations. Any info on the 30th of June? Do you think it's going to be a big one? Mazzy, how you doing, man? So we will be talking about that, I promise, and I'm not going to be just stringing you along. We will be talking about that, but for what I think is going to happen, I made a video this morning that you can go check out where I gave you all of the different scenarios that I imagine it could go down and how it could play out. So I won't be rehashing all of those scenarios again, but I will be talking to you guys and hearing some of your thoughts on it so we can get a bit of a back and forth going. I'm also going to be showing you guys a number of things that it doesn't seem related, but I promise you everything is related to March and March. Everything is related to what is coming on the 30th of June. And I will say this, even if the 30th of June isn't a big date, even if nothing happens, the fact that it's now been threatened, the fact that there is enough of a movement that the people are starting to organize marches around this stuff tells me that we have reached an impasse in South Africa where for a long time the government of South Africa, the ANC, were able to get away with just about anything, right? They could do whatever they wanted, and all they really needed to do was to promise a bunch of things. That was really all they needed to do. I'll quickly show you guys this story. Now we're going to be trying screen share for the first time, and I don't know how that's going to go. We'll see. But yeah, let me just hit the StreamYard here and do this, I imagine. Add to the stage. There we go. Okay, so you guys can still see me. I'll figure out a way to do that better in the future. But okay, so this is Cyril Ramaphosa, and Cyril Ramaphosa was caught telling young people in South Africa, in Ekurhuleni specifically, that from next year they will be able to apply at the Ekurhuleni University for Technology and Science Innovation. The issue? Here's the University of Ekurhuleni. This is it, by the way. That's the entirety of the university. That is the university that young people next year will be able to apply at. It's based uni, yeah, probably right. This is the nature of what we see in the ANC, right? They have for 30 years, 32 years really, governed this country down a cliff, just just down a cliff. And then they make a promise to people and they say, "Hey, we're going to well, maybe actually, you know what? You just gave me an idea here. Because they're going to be training people in science and engineering, maybe the whole idea is that the students must build the university themselves. That's like year one of their course is build a university. Hey, maybe I'm judging the government way too quickly on all of this. This is like the ultimate hands-on practice for being an engineer and a scientist and doing the mathematics behind it. Abaddon, that's a good point that you guys are making here. But of course, the reality of it is this is how the ANC has operated for 32 years. Make a bunch of promises that get you votes, because remember, we're in election season. So the government now has to go above and beyond, making all sorts of promises. And that sits well with the people. March and March proves to me that the people no longer buy the promises. The people no longer listen to the talk. And we know this because places like the Social Research Foundation and the South African Race Relations Foundation, the SRS and the SRF, uh, all of these organizations have been doing polls on South Africans for years now that shows a decline in the trust that the population has on the things that their politicians say. And one of the main things, about 82 or 83% of ANC voters, and these are people who are actively voting for the ANC as well as people who used to vote for the ANC, when asked, who do you most what is the phrase that you most sort of relate your own party to? It was talk too much, does too little. So March and March for me proves that the government's ability to get away with bad governance by simply promising good governance in the future, they've run out of goodwill. And I'm going to borrow a phrase here or a concept here that actually comes from my gaming days, not from not from politics. But I don't know how many of you know who Mike Morhaime is. But Mike Morhaime was the president of Blizzard Entertainment. He's the man that built Blizzard Entertainment into the giant that it was in the gaming industry for more than a decade. And Mike Morhaime had this concept of game design. And he said there are two bank accounts that a gaming company deposit money into. The one is the physical bank account. You bring out a game, people buy the game, you get money. The other is the goodwill bank account. This is where you do good things for the players. So, like bringing out a really good game that is well polished and that delivers on all of the promises that you made to those players, that buys you goodwill. And his argument was, as a gaming company, you have to ensure that that goodwill bank is as full as is humanly possible, so that when you make a mistake, when you commit a oopsie and you bring out a game that's a little broken, or you bring out a game that doesn't quite deliver on the promises that you had made, you can sort of draw money from the goodwill bank in order to pay for that mistake, and then you have to pay back into that goodwill bank so that you can once again get to a reasonable place of goodwill. And if you apply that to the ANC, the ANC's goodwill bank is empty. Throughout all of their years struggling against apartheid, the ANC had built up a significant amount of goodwill in this country from the population. And so whenever they didn't deliver on their promises, the people of South Africa would be like, but it's still the ANC. I believe that that bank account is now empty. And I believe the ANC are so captured ideologically that they don't know how to deposit money into this bank account. Let me quickly show you guys this, because it might actually help make some sense of what we're talking about. Let's do this. Add to the stage. We'll head over here, okay? And I'll quickly show you guys. Where are we now? Oh man, I had it on my screen and then I left. We'll talk about this guy in a second. Don't worry about him for now. I just want to show, where is Cyril? You take, for example, this, right? Where Cyril Ramaphosa speaks about the public office is a public trust. Just talking about how the government is going to take care of corruption and the people of South Africa don't need to worry because the government is now taking corruption seriously in this country. No one believes them, right? No one believes a word that this government is saying. Then you take, for example, the following, right? So there's a place where Ronald Lamola speaks about how no one gets to say to the ANC what they can and cannot do. Is it further down? It can't be further down. I retweeted the guy. Oh, here we go. So here you have Ronald Lamola, for example. And Ronald Lamola, in this article, I won't read the article, it's boring News 24 stuff. But in this article, Ronald Lamola states plain as day that only South Africa gets to determine its foreign policy position and that Washington, D.C. gets no say in the foreign policy of South Africa. Now, on the first, I want to make this remark because it truly astounds me. Truly astounds me. And by the way, Turks Faye, thank you so much for the 10 gifted subs. Ladies and gentlemen, can we get some hearts in chat for Turks Faye? 10 new members to the Republic. I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So on this, I want to say, we need to be honest as a nation. And this is what I mean when I say the ANC is so ideologically captured that they don't know how to make good decisions for the people of this country. Because in order to make good decisions for the people of this country, the ANC would need to abandon their ideas and their ideals. They would need to abandon their ideological positions. Maddie Dixon, thank you so much for joining the Republic, sir. Really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're far too kind. Washington, D.C., America, is oftentimes touted as South Africa's second largest trading partner. Matty, with the 5 new citizens to the Republic. Hearts in chat, ladies and gentlemen. 5 new citizens. Really appreciate you, Matty. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are far too kind, sir. People will oftentimes say that America is South Africa's second largest trading partner. But of course, that's not actually true. America is South Africa's largest trading partner. If you just look at benefits to the country, so if you're not looking at imports, you're looking at exports, you're looking at the physical trade that brings in money for South Africans, America is by far the largest trading partner that South Africa has. China has a massive deficit in trade with South Africa, insofar as we buy a lot more stuff from China than what China buys from us. Even the most recent deals that the ANC made with, well, I say the ANC, John Steenhuisen, but the ANC sort of de facto, even the most recent deals does not put China anywhere close to the amount of stuff that America buys from South Africa. And that is because America's trading policy with South Africa has always been one of, look, we don't really need to sell to you in order for us to flourish. But we can buy the stuff that you guys make because it's quite cheap if we buy it from you. And why not? Right. So, for example, take AGOA. The AGOA agreement isn't an agreement that the Americans embarked upon because they so desperately cared about the South African people. Or rather, I should say, because they so desperately needed the products from South Africa. That's not why AGOA exists. Do you think America needs chickens from South Africa? They really don't. America has more than enough chicken farmers. Do you think America needs beef from South Africa? They don't. They have more than enough beef farmers or cattle farmers in America. They don't need our stuff. The AGOA agreement from the beginning was a helping hand to Africa. It was to say to Africa, look, we'll buy whatever you guys produce. If you don't need it, we'll buy it from you. And because we have so many people, I'm sure they'll like the free stuff, the cheaper stuff. Terx Fay with the 140 Rand donation. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't dope, go up a chop. Terx Fay, thank you very much. On that note of me not drinking, I was at Triggerfish last night with my brothers. They wanted to go celebrate because one of my brothers just finished an assignment. And so we're at Triggerfish, and I walk in and it's dead quiet. There's almost no one there. But my brothers order beer, some craft beer from Triggerfish. And the lady she comes to me and she's like, what would you like? And I'm like, can I get a milkshake, please? And she looks at me and she's like, we don't serve milkshakes here. I know they do, but she's like, we don't serve milkshakes. And I go, oh, I just assumed it's way too late. And I'm like, okay, no, give me a Coke Zero. And genuinely, I've never seen someone so shocked. Like, I've never seen someone so shocked in my entire life. This girl, she doesn't know how to respond because it's at a bar. Triggerfish is a bar. And I'm not having a beer. I think it's the first time she's ever heard that. Uh, it's totally a move I'd pull. Ginger Ninja, back when I used to drink, I would have a beer, but because I don't drink, I'll just have a milkshake because I'm also trying to get off like carbonated drinks. So for me, I ended up having a Coke Zero for the first time in like a month, which is what it was nice. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't like it very much. I liked the Coke Zero. It's just not, it's not what I wanted to drink. But yeah, ultimately it was funny to see her face. She's just like, Coke Zero, like no mix. Like, isn't that the mix for something? Like, surely the Coke Zero goes into something, right? It's not just Coke Zero. And I'm just like, no, just Coke Zero. We're good. That's all I need. Thanks. But okay, back to the topic. Anyways, thank you so much for the 140. Turkish Fight. Really appreciate you, sir. But okay, back to the topic here. Because we're so ideologically captured, because South Africa, and I want you guys to quickly listen to the mischaracterizations that now exist from this government. Just listen to how ideologically captured our government has become, the lies that they just tell. Just listen to this.
For us. And when it comes to the issues of arresting anyone for any slogan, that is a sovereign issue. It's not a matter where we need to be instructed by anyone that go and arrest this one. We are a very proud sovereign country that has its own laws, that has its own processes, and we take into account what the Constitutional Court also decided when it said that that slogan, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, is a liberation chant and slogan. And it's not meant to be a message that elicits or calls upon anyone to go and be killed.
Never mind the fact that white farmers are being killed. Never mind the fact that the Constitutional Court that the government so loves to harp on about, actually, if you look at the Constitutional Court of South Africa, an interesting thing emerges where Kill the Bird, Kill the Farmer is the finest song that you can sing because it's a liberation song, but flying the old South African flag, that you're not allowed to do, right? You are not allowed to fly the old South African flag. That is hate speech, but Kill the Bird, Kill the Farmer is not. This is the government. Also, and why I showed you that video, the Americans never asked for the government to arrest Julius Malema. The Americans never said that Julius Malema isn't allowed to sing the song. The Americans asked that the government condemn the singing of the song. There's a big difference. All the Americans said was say that you don't agree with that song. And they will not do that, which leads me to conclude that this government would rather watch their economy burn to the ground than condemn Kill the Bird, Kill the Farmer. Because that is what's happening in South Africa now. I know that, a lot of economists will tell you, no, 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 the economy does some good things here or there. I am telling you that this country is heading towards an economic catastrophe. I am telling you this now. And I don't care that people like Frans Cronje is saying that there's going to be, separate enclaves and that some of the parts are going to be good. We're talking about the national economy of our country. All of the metrics of this shows us that our country is in trouble. If the Americans were to turn around next month and say, look, guys, we have asked you to not break ties with China or with Iran. We've asked you to simply return to neutral status because that is legitimately what they've asked. They don't want South Africa to not be friends with China and Iran. They're just asking, look, if you're going to be friends with China and Iran, be friends with us too. Be neutral. Just like Switzerland is neutral, like India is neutral. You see, Switzerland and India, they're not getting flack from the Americans. South Africa continues down this road. Lamola proudly boasting about how only they get to determine their national or their foreign policy. And here's the thing that bugs me about this. Here's the thing that drives me absolutely nuts about this. The communists in this country loves to harp on about how sovereignty, right? You heard Cyril say there, we're a proud sovereign nation. They love to harp on about sovereignty. They love to harp on about the fact that they're in charge. Whenever a white person tries to give them advice, and more increasingly, actually, it's not just white people. You see a bunch of black people in this country, black conservatives. There's a number of black conservative economists that I follow on X who are consistently criticizing the government for their communist policies. Whenever a conservative person tries to speak out, they're told to shut the hell up, right? This is our country. Apartheid is over. We'll do what we want to do. In 32 years, what has the ANC done? Here you have a government that has nothing but failure to show. Nothing but failure. They have taken South Africa from being the most advanced country on the African continent. In fact, one of the most advanced countries in the world. South Africa was I would say, more advanced than probably most first world nations. Uh, they have completely eradicated that. They have destroyed this country beyond belief. And then they want to harp on about sovereignty. They want to harp on about how important they are and how they and they alone get to determine their own foreign policy. You see, this is the problem. They've become so ideologically captured that they can't make good decisions. And that then brings us to March and March. And I'm going to show you guys another thing that should actually scare you because, well, let's be honest, this isn't pretty. And this is actually one of the things that scares me about March and March. Guys, do you understand what that headline means? People had more chance of finding a job during the Great Depression than South Africans do in 2026. Like what? The Great Depression, people were lining up. They were lining up to get food from soup kitchens. People would arrive at 4 o'clock in the morning at the factories that were still running, right, and line up, hoping to get in and get their jobs for the day, because most people during the Great Depression were daily employees. If the factory needed 50 people and you were one of the first 50, you could get in and do the job. Otherwise, you would go home and you would starve. That was the Great Depression. And during the Great Depression, people had a better chance of getting a job than what they have in 2026 South Africa. Now, that, as I have said to literally everyone, and I realize that there's a number of people, a number of commentators in South Africa that disagree with me on this point. They want to make March and March out to be something that it isn't. This is why March and March is happening. When you see that headline, there's no way that you can look at that and be surprised at what is happening with March and March, right? No way. How could you be surprised by this? Let me just quickly see here. Healer, Jesus Salvation, how you doing, sir? Community's thoughts about the transitioning of the age of Pisces and now shifting into the age of Aquarius on February the 15th. The heavens change somewhat. I don't know what any of that means. I don't know what that means. Age of Pisces, Aquarius. Sure, I guess that's my thoughts on it. And I'm not trying to be dismissive. I don't follow star signs. I don't even know what star sign Pisces really is. So I genuinely don't know. This is why March and March is happening. And this is why I told you at the beginning of the stream, it doesn't matter if June the 30th is the big day where the country gets shut down by riots. The fact that March and March exists tells me that the South African public has reached the end of their rope. The promises of the government has run out. There are no more promises that the people of South Africa will swallow from this government, because the people of South Africa have realized that there's no real power to this. I'm going to show you guys another thing that just proves how absolutely crazy this government is. Let me show you guys this. Share screen. Look at this. Here you have the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs stopping trucks. How many hours do you guys think he was busy stopping trucks? Do you think he was there for 12 hours, 6 hours, 2 hours? Or did he start stopping trucks when the press told him, by the way, the camera is rolling? And then as soon as the cameras went back to studio, he got in his limo and drove off. Yeah, I'm not playing the video. He's just speaking nonsense, so doesn't really matter. I'm not playing the sound of the video, Tokoloshi. I'm just showing you. This is the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs. This is the government. This and the people of South Africa realize this. They're not stupid anymore, right? And by that, I don't necessarily. Well, I do think that the average voter in South Africa is pretty stupid, but the South African voter is no longer swallowing what the government is laying down. They've come to realize that this is nonsense. The government is full of tricks. The government is constantly just talking, talking, talking. Nothing is actually happening. So, of course, the anger is starting to build. And I'm going to throw a little rock in here for you guys, just a tiny pebble. And then you can tell me if you agree or not. I will not be surprised if there are American three-letter agencies that involve themselves on June the 30th. It will not surprise me. I hope YouTube is paying you ad revenue for I'm being bombarded with ads. Bandit, how you doing, sir? YouTube does pay me ad revenue, but you're not supposed to be bombarded with it. I have it set on balanced because according to YouTube, that's the one where viewers will get most amount of watch time and they'll only get an ad once or twice throughout a stream. So if you're getting bombarded with ads, I need to change that setting to conservative, which is funny. They literally call it the conservative setting, where they show the fewest amount of ads, because I was told that that option just shows you a couple of ads and then it's done. um, so please tell me if you guys are getting too many ads, and I will change that setting immediately. I'd rather get less money from YouTube ads and make sure that you guys have a good viewing experience than just getting you uh, destroyed through ads. Voting for the smaller parties. So you go. I don't agree with you there, right? And I'll tell you why I don't agree with the idea that it doesn't help that we vote for smaller parties. You are correct in that Freedom Front Plus, for example, isn't going to win the election. But the Freedom Front Plus doesn't have to win the election. The Freedom Front Plus just needs to get enough votes to become a kingmaker. Because that's really the only thing you and I need. If they can get enough votes to where they become a kingmaker, we're good. Because the Freedom Front Plus, on balance, will vote with the DA. Almost always. And I know there's some people who like to point out that, oh, but there's a couple of municipalities where they voted with the ANC. If you go and look at why they decided to vote with the ANC, it's not hard to understand. Because the DA has this incredibly arrogant approach to sort of coalition government where they just do whatever they want and they refuse to listen to their coalition partners. And so the Freedom Front Plus took the calculated decision to punish the DA in some of the smaller municipalities in South Africa because the ANC promised to do what the Freedom Front Plus wanted them to do, and the DA refused to even listen. But on average, if you vote for the Freedom Front Plus, the DA is still going to win in the Western Cape. I'm going to use the Western Cape as the example here. But if we can get the DA down to 45% of the vote in the Western Cape, and we can get the Freedom Front Plus to 5, 6, 7%, now suddenly the Freedom Front Plus has the ability to go to the DA and say, look, you have a choice. We can form a minority government with all of these other minority parties, and you get out of government, or you and I can agree to work together. But I'm going to require a couple of things from you. I'm going to require that you lower the asinine redistribution of wealth that you continue to push upon the citizens of this country. I'm going to require that you lower the amount of interference and nanny stating that you're doing. I'm going to require that you stop celebrating LGBTQ plus alphabet people, right? And you can get those promises and commitments from the government of the DA without the DA necessarily not being in power or the ANC being in power, just by allowing for certain kingmakers to exist. So that to me is what why I believe voting for smaller parties is actually not the worst idea. This might be one of the ways in which we can hold the DA to account. and I'm going to be voting Freedom Front Plus as well. I will never tell you guys who to vote for. You have to make that decision for yourselves. But I will tell you now from the offset, I will be voting for the Freedom Front Plus this election, because not because I necessarily agree with everything that the Freedom Front Plus stands for, but I agree broadly with most of the things that they stand for. And so that's going to be my party that I vote for. I do not agree with almost anything that the DA stands for. Me and the DA are not on the same page. And I will tell you guys this. Make Heidelberg green again. Shanta, pretty much, yes. I'll tell you guys, absolutely agree, Shanta. I'll tell you guys this, which I think I'm gonna annoy so many of you now, and I so apologize. But the book Conflict of Visions, guys, it's been blowing my mind. It is all I can think about. Uh, the concepts that he describes and that he explains in that book, it keeps me awake at night. There's so many concepts that's so difficult to struggle with and to sort of digest, and you're just constantly going, okay, wait, this completely shatters all of my views on life. um but once you understand how once you understand how these visions operate, the world makes so much more sense. You start to realize that the argument left and right just doesn't even begin to matter, because left and right is too vast. It's too broad of terms to really describe reality. I'll give you guys an example. No one in their right mind would make the argument that the National Party and the ANC were ideologically aligned on everything. Of course not. The ANC and the NP had vast disagreements on a number of issues, most prominently on the issue of conservatism. In many ways, the National Party was hyper conservative. The National Party was not for homosexuality or for LGBTQ rights. They were not for gay marriage. The National Party was very much, at least in name, for Christian conservatism. The National Party was not, broadly in favor of communism, although they were socialist. So there's a number of things in which the National Party and the ANC are completely different. But then there's also a number of things in which the National Party and the ANC are identical. For example, the National Party was not a capitalist party, not even close. The National Party, more broadly, was not a party that celebrated freedom, not even for Afrikaners. The National Party was a party that believed in the ability to shape society in one way or another. They did believe that it was possible to fix humanity, so to speak. And they did that through incredibly powerful government institutions. There's been calls now on News 24. I'll see if I quickly can find this for you. Because this is the typical leftist response to just about everything. Where's this Peter de Toy and his nonsense? Why am I doing this alone? I could just show you guys what I'm talking about. Here we go. I just want to see here. Here we go. Right. So Adrian Basson writes, arrest the 30 June deadline terrorists. Why is he arguing this? Because in the mind of Adrian Basson, if you arrest the March and March people, if you arrest the people that want to shut down the country because they're unhappy with immigration, then the problem goes away. Right. So the idea is the state has a responsibility to fix the people. Adrian Basson couldn't care less about the underlying issues that is the result of March and March. He just believes that if you shut down the terrorists, he calls them terrorists, then the problem goes away, right? That same mindset, that exact same mindset, is the very reason, or is the very thing that the National Party had as well. They believed, and this happened, right? A lot of Afrikaners were locked up by the National Party because they were sympathetic to the ANC, because they didn't agree with the National Party. The National Party just locked them up because the idea was the state can fix society, and the state has a responsibility to fix society. And then you read Conflict of Visions and you go, oh, it left and right doesn't help. You can't use left and right. You have to use constrained versus unconstrained vision, because it perfectly describes your allies and your enemies. Perfectly. If you do not, if you want to know if someone is your ally, read that book, or at the very least just Google constrained versus unconstrained vision, Thomas Sowell. Just do that. uh, it'll give you enough of an insight to know whether or not you can trust a certain party to actually have your back, to actually do broadly the things that you care about. When you do that, the DA, they're unconstrained. The DA adheres to the unconstrained vision insofar as they believe that the institution of state can solve the problems of humanity. They believe that the problems of humanity are fixable. You can remove greed. You can remove corruption. You can remove people's need to kill themselves by merely pretending that the guy with the beard is in fact a girl, right? You can remove the tendency of stigma around homosexuality by just pretending like men can actually get married. They believe that these things will make a difference. That's why they say, that's why Jordan E. Lewis goes in front of the entire nation in his national address and tells people that immigrants are amazing and good, and we shouldn't be trying to get rid of immigrants in this country, because immigrants contribute so much to our society. It is because, from Jordan E. Lewis's position, it doesn't matter if someone is from Nigeria or if someone is from Pretoria, it's the same person. But it quite obviously isn't. And I'll actually show you guys uh, a clip from an interview that makes the point. Although it's talking about Islam, and I'm going to have a couple of things to say about the clip in general. Uh, it is talking about Islam, but Gad Saad makes my point better than what I can make it. I'm not as intelligent or as well spoken as Gad Saad. And so I'll just use Gad Saad as the example because, yeah, it's always better to let smarter men than you speak. Um, Here we go. Okay. So listen to this.
Endorsed your book. He said Western civilization is doomed unless the core weakness of suicidal empathy is recognized and actions are taken that are hard but necessary for survival. Gad Saad articulates this well. All Gad's book, including this one, are great. All your books, including this one, are great. So a big fan of Elon Musk. Many people at the same time have viewed Elon's feed on his own X platform in the last couple of years as being an almost permanent rally cry against migration, and in particular, promoting people like Tommy Robinson, who I know you know and have talked to, the people that many people think are genuinely Islamophobic, who hate Muslims and Islam and are directing all their fury at the 2 billion or so Muslims on the planet, which is, of course, 1 in 4 of the entire global population. What do you say to that?
Look, I'm an immigrant. Elon is an immigrant. The fact that we are both immigrants doesn't mean that we are equally likely to assimilate within the Western ethos. irrespective of where we come from, right? Fido the cat, the house cat, is a feline. The wild lion is a feline. They're both called feline. That doesn't mean that I will equally cuddle with both of them, despite the fact that they hold the same title of being a feline.
It's an important point. That's an incredibly important point. And that's exactly what I'm talking about here. From Jordan Neal Lewis's position, because he holds to the unconstrained vision that believes that humans are blank slates, the immigrant from Nigeria is exactly the same as the person that was born and raised in Pretoria. Maybe, the person in Pretoria has a slightly lighter skin, or maybe the person in Pretoria speaks Afrikaans and doesn't actually speak Nigerian or whatever language they speak in Nigeria. But for the most part, they're the same. Of course, that couldn't be further from the truth. The fact of the matter is, culture, society really is an incredibly fragile thing. It's a thing that if you make too many changes too fast to society, you start to see a breakdown in society broadly, right? Society can't handle massive changes too quickly. And you see that in the neighborhoods in South Africa, the townships that have just sprung up in this country, hundreds of them filled with illegal immigrants. A lot of the townships where it used to be just South Africans are now sort of half and half, illegal immigrants versus South Africans. And that has a profound effect on the psychology of the people who live there. We so often, you hear about things like high trust versus low trust societies. And high trust societies are built broadly by people who share the same cultural principles. You can't have a high trust society when you have a group of people who do not agree culturally on the basic principles of life. Because that's the breakdown. In a high trust society, and the best way to describe this would be borrowing from Davy Root in a separate interview. He said, a high trust society requires that I know the rules, you know the rules, and we know that we know the rules. That's the requirement of a high trust society. So when you have someone coming in from the Middle East, now South Africa doesn't have quite the same problem with Middle Eastern immigrants yet. And that's, of course, because, well, Europe is taking the Middle Eastern immigrants. And if you have a choice between going to Europe or coming to South Africa, you're going to go to Europe, right? Because they're giving you free crap there. But the point is the same. If you take an immigrant from the Middle East, someone who believes that women can't dress provocatively, because if she wears a skirt, that means she wants it, right? Believe that a woman should be walking around in a black bag. They believe that the Quran should be read 5 times a day. They believe that the entire society must adhere to Sharia law. And they don't believe in freedom of speech. They don't believe in the right of individuals to express themselves in whichever way they choose. That's going to have a profound effect, right? Because I know what the rules are. I know that a girl is allowed to walk around with a skirt. The girl knows what the rules are. She knows that she's allowed to walk around with a skirt. But the man that is about to throw acid in her face doesn't seem to know the rules. So what's the result there? The result is that now I no longer trust the guy I see walking on the street, because I'm looking at the guy and I don't know if he knows what the rules are of this society. A great example would be take the man that was almost beheaded in Ireland. I know that we can't just go around stabbing people because we don't agree with them, right? And most of you know that we can't just go around stabbing people that we don't agree with. But if I don't know if you know that we can't just stab each other, I'm going to be highly suspicious of you. Whenever I see you on the streets, I'm going to be highly suspicious because I don't know if we know the same things. And that's the issue with immigration. That's why you can't have unlimited immigration into a society. That's one of the things I disagreed with yesterday with Davi Ruet, right? It's one of the things I disagreed with. I don't believe that we need a United States of Africa, because I believe that would be terrible. Because I do not believe that all of the cultures of Africa are perfectly compatible with one another. I don't even think the 12 or 11 cultures that we currently have in South Africa are perfectly compatible with one another. And so I believe that it will be catastrophic if you had the entire Africa with freedom of movement and all the nations, people can just live wherever they want. It would be an absolute catastrophe, because Africa isn't like Europe. It's not as if you have Germany and almost all Germans are just German, and you have French and almost all the French are just French. That's not how Africa is, right? Africa didn't build civilizations. Africa remained tribes. And that's a result of Africa. The geographical location of Africa didn't really lend itself to civilization building. And we've gone down the list of why that is. To build a civilization, there's a couple of things you desperately need. For one, you need to be able to plant food for food security. And before the technology of laying pipelines, you needed to be close to where water is, because Africa has intermittent rainfall pretty much everywhere. It made it almost impossible to build large civilizations, because it could just stop raining and then your entire civilization dies, it starves, right? So that made it impossible. Africa is perfect for nomadic tribes, and nomadic tribes need to be small, because if it's too large, you'll need to move all the time, because you'll basically drain the land of resources way too quickly. As a result of this, Africa has not had time to take all of these disparate cultures and merge them into a single culture. And now this is going to be the most controversial point that I think you'll ever hear. You do not merge cultures peacefully. You can take cultures that are largely similar and merge them peacefully. That's not a problem. So, for example, you could take the Afrikaner and you can put them in America, and they will largely just be fine, right? You can take the Afrikaner and put them in Europe, and they will largely just be fine. You can take the English in South Africa and you can put them in Europe, and they'll be fine. You can put them in America in certain states, and they'll be fine, right? It's not going to be that big of an issue. Um, you can probably take the Zulu and the Sepedi and I don't think the Zulu, and maybe the Zulu and the Venda more, and they might be fine as far as mostly peaceful integration happens. But if you took the Zulu and the Xhosa, there it won't be peaceful. And the reason for it is, when you have cultures that are too different, you need to have violence that ultimately subjects the one culture to the other. This is how it happened in Europe. The barbarian tribes of Europe, a great man by the name of Bismarck, took all the disparate kingdoms of Germany and conquered them, and then forced them under one banner, Greater Germany. Right? This is the idea. You conquer those cultures and you forcibly bring them into subjugation. Otherwise, the cultures won't just mix. If cultures are too different, you need that force element to basically tell that culture, adapt or die. This is why, for example, in the Middle East, most of the cultures that used to exist in the Middle East are dead. They no longer exist. It's now just an Islamic culture, right? Almost all of the Middle Eastern countries have an Islamic culture, because Muhammad and his followers conquered those nations, and all of those nations were given a simple option: adapt or die. You either follow, submit, or die. Simple as. And if you do that, you can absolutely make a one world culture, but that would require that one culture is capable of conquering the entire nation or the entire world and bringing all of those cultures into subjugation. Now, of course, it into subjection. It it won't work perfect all the time, but it can work to some extent, to some degree. Um, Ultimately, the culture that tries to do this will lose before they could ever actually succeed in it. America tried to do that through culture. With Hollywood and with the music industry, they try to bring the whole world into an American culture sort of thing. But fundamentally, you can't just bring people from all across the world together under a single banner and expect that to go well. That's not how it works. If you're not willing to forcibly bring a culture into subjection to a dominant culture, that can't work. And in South Africa, it's even worse because South Africa doesn't really have a dominant culture. This is one of the things that is destroying South Africa, is the fact that we don't have a dominant culture. We try to pretend like the Rainbow Nation is the answer, but it clearly isn't. Anyways, let's continue.
So people from Islamic countries come in all varieties. Some are perfectly lovely and peaceful, others not so much so. But as we've discussed, you and I previously, Pierce, Islam contains a set of codified ideas that are either congruent or incongruent with the West. And so in answering that question, we may want to decide how many Muslims to allow into the West.
Which is perfectly reasonable to have controlled immigration policies. I think one of the problems
you can see Piers Morgan here. So Piers is what you would refer to as someone who adheres to the unconstrained vision. And you can see the cognitive dissonance happening in Pierce's face, right? You can see it happen in real time. Because Pierce understands the argument that Gadsad is making, because Gad is brilliant at making the argument, but you can see his own unconstrained mind fighting against that concept. Because from his perspective, why can't you just assimilate 2 billion Muslims into Europe? Why can that not happen? Well, the reason that can't happen is because 2 billion Muslims have a book that effectively makes it impossible to integrate. And the only way you get any Muslims to ever integrate into Western society is those Muslims who ignore certain parts of their book. And it's required. Because if they were to follow the entirety of their book, you'd be in trouble because their book calls for the death of all non-believers. Anyways.
In the UK, for example, and indeed throughout Europe, has been a failure by governments, Western governments, to control immigration. And that has been pretty disastrous, actually. So I don't, for a moment, dispute that. It's just my issue with people like Tommy Robinson, for example, is that his concern is singular to Muslims. It's all he talks about. I mean, you talk about a lot of Muslims are perfectly good, law-abiding, peaceful people, which is obviously true. But you could take the same argument with white Christians, right? UK is a majority white country. Therefore, the majority of crime is committed by white.
Okay, so I want to talk about this because I'm sick and tired of hearing people say this and no one seems to have the correct retort. Is it true that immigrants in South Africa do not commit the vast majority of crime in South Africa? Absolutely spot on true. Immigrants are not the guys that's committing the vast majority of crime. But here's the thing. When a citizen of South Africa, when a South African citizen commits a crime, I have to deal with that. He's a citizen of this country, and it is what it is, right? I need to have laws in place to put that guy in jail. But it is my problem because he's a citizen of my country. When an illegal foreigner commits a crime in my country, I should not have to have dealt with that. If even one person is robbed or murdered by an illegal immigrant, that is one person too many. That person, I never accepted responsibility for that person's crime. Right? And I'm sick and tired of people using this argument. Oh, they don't commit the vast majority of crime. I don't care. They should be committing no crime because they shouldn't be here. In fact, if you're an illegal immigrant in South Africa, 100% of all illegal immigrants in South Africa are criminals. 100% of them. Because in the very act of entering the country, they broke the law. Because we have laws that state how you can enter the country. You decided to ignore those laws. That makes you a criminal. So it's in fact not true that the vast majority of illegal immigrants in South Africa are peaceful and law-abiding citizens. The very fact that they are here illegally shows that they are not law-abiding. Because if they were law-abiding, they would be here legally. So the crime rate or the criminal rate of illegal immigrants in South Africa is 100%, which I don't have to tell you guys, but per capita is the highest crime rate in the world. And I'm sick and tired of that argument. Now, if those illegal immigrants then also commit a bunch of murder or steal or whatever the case may be, and I accept that it might be 2 or 3% of illegal immigrants that actually commit subsequent crimes, that's still too many because they should not have been here in the first place. I never accepted responsibility for them. And I'm sick and tired of people trying to pretend like it is. Yes, it's true that South Africans commit the vast majority of crime, but that's also because this is our country. We are supposed to be here. So it just really, really peeves me when people say stuff like this. Immigrants in South Africa at least should be aware of this unbiased information. Juanita, how are you doing? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I truly appreciate that. As a visitor spouse of South Africa, I follow all laws here, always. Derrida, and that's literally what it should be, right? And I don't mind immigrants. Let me just be very clear, because I think this does need to be said. I don't mind immigration. I am one of those people that actually love new experiences. I love talking to people that's from other countries. It's just one of my favorite things, right? So I have no problem with it, provided that you're here legally. Right? You applied for your papers were granted you. Great. Here we go. Right? You're here. I'm happy to have you here. And I'm not in favor of illegal immigrants being killed, being harmed, suffering violence. I'm not even necessarily in favor of what is happening to a lot of the illegal immigrants right now. The fact that you see them, sort of huddled and desperately trying to get out of the country, that is sad. I blame the government for that because it's a situation that our government in their lawlessness have created. And it is super sad. The thing that saddens me about June the 30th is the fact that I can very easily see it turn very violent. And I don't want a single migrant in this country to be harmed as a result of this. My gardener, for example, my gardener is here legally. The day that I employed him, I asked him for his ID. I asked him for his passport. I checked his visa status. He is here legally in this country. He is afraid because he says that a lot of the people that are checking their passports aren't looking to see if they have valid visas. They're just going after anyone that doesn't speak a language that is from South Africa, that doesn't look like they belong here. Of course, that's the nature of these kinds of things. When the citizens, that's one of the dangers of vigilante justice, is vigilante justice so often turns into injustice. Because while as much as there might be good people behind the movement, there's almost always bad people that's going to adopt the movement and try to corrupt it for their own ends. This is going to be one of those things that I'm afraid will happen. And I don't think the government has the ability to deal with that, to be quite frank. You must apply legally to be in South Africa. Lots of illegal migrants are part of syndicates, Nigerian acts, South American cartels, car hijacking syndicates from Zimbabwe, Mozambique. Go look at how many. Springbok, I absolutely agree with you. Right? I absolutely agree with you. This is why you have to have control of your own borders, because if you do not, you have the problem of, shall we say, you have to. There's a few things that a country needs to be able to do. For one, a country, and we'll get back to the video in a second, a country needs to be able to plan ahead of time, right? Because things don't just get built overnight. If a country wants to build new hospitals, whether they want to do that through the private sector or whether they want to do that as the government, I would like the private sector, but never mind. It takes years to build, right? Power stations can take up to a decade plus to build. Railway, roads, schools, all of these things take time to build. And so if the government doesn't know who is going to be here in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, how are they going to be able to plan for the things that needs building? If I know that there's 1.5 million people living in this town now, I can project that in the next 10 years, it's probably going to be 2 million that's going to live here. So I will plan accordingly. Maybe we need another hospital. Maybe we need 2 or 3 more schools, right? Whatever the case may be, but I'll plan accordingly. What happens if in 10 years, there's 4 million people living here because of illegal immigration? Now I don't have enough schools. I don't have enough hospitals. I don't have enough roads. I don't have enough homes. I have nothing. I don't have enough piping and infrastructure for water and refuse. So the entire system comes crumbling down if you can't control who comes in and who goes out of your country. This is one of the fundamental reasons why I don't agree with the United States of Africa. Because where do you think the vast majority of Africans will go when they get to travel freely through the whole of Africa? Do you see millions of Africans heading for Malawi or for Nigeria or for the Congo? Or do you imagine that the South African population will suddenly triple? It is an unworkable scenario. That just will not work. It cannot work. So yeah, I'm definitely not in favor of that system. But okay, let's get back to the video. We're almost done. I just want to show you guys a couple more ideas here.
White people. But if you read Tommy Robinson's X feed, he never mentions any crime by white people. It's like it doesn't exist. It's like this is a singular issue, that this kind of stuff only happens with Muslims. And that gets amplified by Elon to hundreds of millions of people. And
I'm yet to see Piers Morgan on the right side of any debate. Like, genuinely, this guy, I don't know if he ever gets tired of being wrong. You know, COVID, he was behind the whole COVID thing 100%. And then it turns out, yeah, no, COVID was a complete joke. There's another thing that he was absolutely against. I mean, it turns out, well, actually, that was 100% true. And he looked like a fool as well. In 2016, he was one of the people that hated President Trump. And he turned out to be a fool on that as well. Like, he's just always wrong about everything.
That, I think, is problematic.
Look, in evolutionary psychology, there's a principle called assortative mating, which basically argues that if you wish to have a long, successful, happy marriage, you should marry someone with whom you share some of the most foundational values that define your life. So, for example, if I were an acerbic atheist and I marry someone who's very religious, I am putting the statistical odds against me of having a happy marriage. Love does not conquer all. By this exact same logic, there are a set of values that typically come from Islamic societies that are perfectly antithetical to Western values. So on average, someone coming from Denmark and Sweden and trying to settle in Iceland is more likely to assimilate than the same number of people coming from Waziristan and Afghanistan. And that statement
True.
should be obvious to the average 3-day-old pigeon.
But what do we do with people who are not Muslim but commit similar crimes?
We punish them like we would anybody else, right? There are Jewish pedophiles.
Man, his question, it's such an asinine question. What do we do with people who commit similar crimes than the Muslims did? You punish them. Like, what do you mean? No one here is arguing that it's only Muslims that are pedophiles and that grape girls. No one is making that argument. But as I said already, the fact that you have illegal migrants in your country abusing your own girls is unacceptable. If it's an Englishman that is abusing young girls, then that's the issue, right? There's literally nothing you can do about it. That's an Englishman. You have to deal with it. You have to put him in jail. It's your problem to deal with. But if it's someone from another country that is committing that crime, that's not your problem. That should be their problem. Why is it suddenly your problem to deal with? I don't understand it. I want to see if I can find. I'll show you guys this because I do actually think. I do actually think this might be important. Let me just see if I can find this for you. Let's watch the video first, and then I'll show you, because I want to show you a post that kind of scares me a little.
That should be punished. No one is contesting that. I'm Jewish. I think they should deserve the exact same punishment as anybody else. That doesn't take away from the fact that when we're looking at the British grooming gangs for the past 30 years, most of them are not named Mordechai Richter. They're named Muhammad Akbar Hussein.
True.
That is true, that the grooming gangs in places like Rotherham and Telford,
Well, I love Gatsad,
were predominantly British Pakistani Muslim men, and they were committing their crimes, horrendous crimes, against many thousands of young white English girls, predominantly. So that was an appalling scandal. It wasn't exposed.
Caleb, I'm sympathetic to the idea that everyone can and should just put their differences aside is the greatest lie of the 60s to now. Well, yes, Caleb, because it's sort of in the 60s that this, and in order to understand this, you have to understand where it comes from. So in the sort of late 1800s, Karl Marx writes he's, Great Plague on the world. Mid to late 1800s, and in the 1920s, the Russians adopt this system. But of course, Karl Marx writes that the workers of the world will unite, and he makes a similar argument to the modern day left, only he does it through workers, right? And so, from Karl Marx's perspective, a worker in Germany has far more in common with a worker in Russia than he has with a capitalist in Germany. So he's arguing that culture and nation doesn't matter, because everything is economics. People are, and I've given you guys this phrasing before, but James Lindsay effectively coined the term. Karl Marx argued that man is not Homo erectus, but rather, or Homo sapien, man is Homo economicus. So Karl Marx's argument was that man is a result of his economic system. That's it, right? So there's no, man isn't German, man isn't French, man doesn't have certain values that is instilled upon him based on his parents and who his parents were. Man is a result primarily of his economic system. So if you placed man in a capitalist system, man would be greedy, man would be corrupt, man would be evil. If you placed man into a socialist system, man would be loving and kind and empathetic and all those good things. So Homo economicus. Of course, the Russians do this, and the Russians prepare. Vladimir Lenin and Stalin, they all prepare for this worker revolution that will go global. So the entire world will erupt in this global revolution where the workers will throw off the yoke of capitalism and will adopt this new idea. Instead, what happens is the intellectuals and the students of the world adopt communism, and they throw off the invisible yoke of capitalism, but the workers don't unite. The workers are sort of happy with their flat screens and with their cars and their homes. The workers don't really buy into the nonsense. And so in the 1960s, as the horrors of the Soviet Union are starting to emerge, with a number of communists in America going to the Soviet Union and seeing firsthand the stuff that is happening there, the communists realized that, okay, we have a serious PR problem. No one is seriously going to buy this version of communism. The Soviet Union's evil is now just too well documented for us to ignore. And so, with the help of a number of philosophers, they in the 1960s they adopt a new philosophy of communism. It's still based on communism, but instead of it being Homo economicus, it now becomes almost Homo strugglus, right? And that would be my term that I'm now coining. So man now becomes Homo strugulus, where your struggle is what determines who you are. And this is where the oppressor versus oppressed narrative comes from, where the man is a result of his oppression or oppressor status. All white people are oppressors, all non-white people are oppressed, but some white people can also be oppressed. And so they design this incredibly intricate system of struggle sessions, and the Struggle Olympics is born, where if you're a black lesbian trans woman, then you are infinitely higher on the scale of importance than a white man, right? In the Struggle Olympics. And the idea is still the same as the origins of communism. Remember, Karl Marx argued that the workers of the world will unite because the workers have far more in common with each other than what they will have with the capitalists of their nations. That didn't work. So now the idea is that the oppressed of the world will unite, because the oppressed in England, in Germany, in America, in Africa have far more in common with each other than what the oppressors have with their oppressors, with their oppressed. It's still the same ideology. Nothing has changed, right? So that ideology is still the foundational ideology of it all. The idea is to unite all the oppressed people of the world into one group, one powerful nation of the oppressed. And that starts in the 60s, because in the 60s, you also have the adoption of the long march through the institutions. So now that they've adopted this neo-communism or new communism, now they're not going to do it the same way that the Bolsheviks did, or the Mensheviks, but they called themselves the Bolsheviks. They're not going to do it violently at first. They're going to move slowly through the institutions. First, capture all of the educational institutions, and then once you've captured all of them, you'll just churn out all of these communists, right? So you'll get the young people into the university because the entire university have been captured. They'll spit out communists. That's why it started in the 60s, and that is the great lie that we are currently living through. Karl Marx didn't even take baths. Apparently, not only was he a mooch, but he was a stank mooch at that. True, go. Like, Karl Marx is not a good person. In fact, it's funny that some black people actually idolize Karl Marx, because if you've ever read his letters, you'll know that he hated black people.
Exposed by Tommy Robinson, as he likes to claim. It was exposed by a journalist at the Times newspaper in a big front page expose that started it. I don't dispute, and never have done, that Robinson hasn't banged the drum about this quite properly, because he's right. It was a scandal that was then covered up, and it was covered up because people didn't want to confront the reality of who was perpetrating these crimes and against whom they were doing it. And the whole thing, frankly, was a complete disgrace. Now, having said that, it's also true that the vast majority of sexual crime in the UK is committed by white men, right? And again, I simply say, if everyone...
And that's the last point that I'll speak to here, because Piers, I really can't stand listening to Piers too much, but you would expect in a white country where the majority of people are white that the vast majority of crime would be committed by the white people. This would be an expectation. It's funny to me that people like Pierce can't seem to understand that. Per capita matters. It's the same thing we see here in South Africa. In South Africa, they'll tell you, well, 29 or 27 million people, or 27,000 people are killed every single year here in South Africa. Black people are killed far more often than white farmers. So, yeah, you would expect that. There's about 53, 54 million black people in South Africa. There's just under 30,000 white farmers in South Africa. If white farmers were killed by the exact same numbers as black people were killed, it would take 1 year and you would kill all the white farmers. So you would expect to see far more black people die in a violent country like South Africa than what you would expect to see white farmers die in real numbers. But per capita matters here. Because if I look at the per capita data, I see that if you're an ordinary South African living here, you have a chance of dying of about 45 to 50 out of 100,000. That's your chance of dying in South Africa, of being murdered. That statistic, by the way, means that about 45 people out of every 100,000 gets killed in this country. Right, so that's your chances of being murdered in South Africa. If you're a white farmer, on the flip side, it is 108 out of 100,000. So more than double the amount of the ordinary citizen in South Africa. If you're a police officer in South Africa, your chances of being murdered is 65 out of 100,000. So it's more dangerous to be a white farmer in South Africa than what it is to be a police officer in South Africa. Per capita matters. Because if you look at it per capita wise, you know that there is a problem with white farm murders in South Africa. It's very clear. And then, of course, you can do all the other things, like add in the amount of violence that white people suffer when they're attacked on farms. And you can compare that to the violence and the cruelty of ordinary murders in this country. And you see again that there is a disproportionate amount of violence that is enacted upon white farmers that you don't see present with other people dying in this country. In most of the murders in this country, it is just a straight up murder. But when you go to a farm murder, what you see is just the most abject cruelty that you can ever imagine. You see people raped. You see stuff shoved into women. You see men being absolutely abused and humiliated before they're finally killed. There's reports and actual crimes of young kids being drowned in boiling water. So it's not enough to kill the kid. No, you want the kid to suffer the maximum before they're killed. That's the nature of these farm murders and these farm attacks. So when you start to look at all of that, now you put together and you say, okay, there's some serious problems here. By the way, Echo Oris with the 140 Rand donation, dude, really appreciate you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are far too kind. Exactly why I do not allow victimhood mindset in my house. As long as you have air in your lungs, you are not a victim. You may have survived something, but we are not victims. You cannot be victor and victim at the same time. Echo, that's a great way to look at it. Of course, the fact of the matter is that we are all victims in a way, especially if you're a Christian, you know that we are victims, right? We are victims of the first sin, and we are victims of our own flesh, and we are victims of a world that is beyond wicked and evil. But the fix to that is not to pretend to be completely broken and defeated and claim that everyone helped you. It's to turn to Christ and to know that he will save you and that he has already saved you. Right. And as a result of that, you can walk tall and you can give love to everyone else around you. The problem with victimhood as it exists on the left is that it makes you a permanent slave to that victim, to the victimhood. I'll quickly see if I can show you guys this. I'm not going to show you the video because it's over an hour long, but it is super interesting and it sort of speaks to what you just mentioned there. Where is it? Here we go. Here you go. Okay, so I was watching this. It's Dr. Johanna. I was watching this yesterday on trigonometry. So this woman sort of made a name for herself because in 2022, she and a number of her colleagues did a meta study, a meta study of depression. So they looked at every single paper that has been produced on depression and what causes depression and how depression actually operates. And what they found completely destroyed the modern narrative that we have of depression. So what causes depression according to psychologists everywhere in the world? A serotonin imbalance, right? You have an imbalance in your brain and that causes the depression. Except of all the studies that they looked at, some studies found that victims of depression had slightly lower serotonin levels. Other studies found that victims of depression had no change in their serotonin levels. And some studies even found that victims of depression have more serotonin in their brains. So there's no link between serotonin and depression. None. In fact, there is not a single link between depression and a chemical imbalance in the brain of any kind. This is why the drugs that the pharmaceutical companies give, the SSRI drugs, which is meant to stop serotonin from being removed from the brain to help with the buildup of serotonin, doesn't actually solve depression. What people experience when they go on the drug is a sort of drug dependency. They believe the drug will help a little, and so the drug helps. But what the research actually finds is the people who suffer from depression, who buy into the idea that it is a chemical imbalance, suffer more than people who don't buy into it. And what they mean by that is if someone buys into the idea that it is a chemical imbalance, they will be on that drug for the rest of their lives. But those people who do not buy into it, who change their lifestyle, who start eating healthy, who start going out more, they get off the drug like this and they move on with their lives, right? So that was very, very, very big. And of course, she's been attacked everywhere. Funnily enough, before the 1990s, no one thought that depression was caused by a chemical imbalance. We didn't know what caused it, but we didn't think that it was biological. Instead, we said depression is a find response to things that's happening in your life. So if something bad happened, you're going to feel sad about it and you have to deal with that sadness. But it's okay. It's an acceptable response to something that's happening in your life. And that's how people treated it. So they would go to the psychologist and they would get treatment in terms of psychological treatment, going in, speaking every week, talking through your problem, and then you move on with your life. Whereas the drug, right, keeps you on the drug forever. And more importantly, what they see is people who go on these drugs and buy into the idea that it is a chemical imbalance become permanent visitors to the psychologist. So they're on the drug, they go to the psychologist once a month or once a week to talk about their feelings and their issues, because they can never actually be cured, because remember, it's a biological problem. But guess where the idea of the biological problem comes from? In the 1990s, the pharmaceutical companies developed the drug broadly known as SSRIs, your antidepressant drugs. And the pharmaceutical companies also, coincidentally, have all of the research that proves that depression is because of a chemical imbalance. And they market the living crap out of this. Like, the pharmaceutical companies spend billions marketing that if you feel depressed, antidepressants is the answer to that depression. And suddenly you have 1 in 5 people on antidepressants. In the UK, in America, it's even higher. 1 in 5 in England, not in the UK, in England, 1 in 5 people are on antidepressants. Now, here's where things get interesting. Here's where things get really interesting. Of all of the studies, this is not according to this doctor, of all of the studies on what serotonin actually does, it doesn't appear as if serotonin does anything to the brain. It doesn't help you think better. It doesn't help with cognitive ability. It doesn't help with decision making. It doesn't help with sleep. It doesn't help with memory. Like, none of that appears to involve serotonin in any way, shape, or form. The only part of human life that serotonin appears to have an effect on, and it's a very big and very bad effect, is on sex drive. If you have higher levels of serotonin, you have a lower sex drive, and it can actually lead to infertility, where your sex organs don't function well. So higher serotonin, lower sex drive, and lower fertility. And then you look at it and you go, and this is just my speculation, she didn't say this, could this be the fertility crisis? Throughout the world, in the last 30 years, population has been declining. A lot of places, the population is collapsing. And it seems to coincide with the 90s and suddenly everyone going on antidepressants. And I haven't done the studies, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I wonder, if you were to look at the numbers, the more people start taking antidepressants, do you see a correlation in fertility rates as they're plummeting? It probably also describes why people who are on antidepressants and people who are married to people who are depressed will oftentimes say that they go years without actually having sex, right? Because the guy just doesn't have a sex drive. He's just constantly in this depressed state. And it could be that that depressed state is actually caused by the drugs that he's taking. So his brain is just constantly on serotonin. And yeah, that's, in my opinion, might be a very, very bad thing. I'm not sure, right? So we'll have to look at it, but it was interesting to see, nevertheless. I'm sorry, not sorry. As someone with anxiety and OCD who have consulted with professionals, you are ill-equipped to speak about psychological issues and medications from an educated perspective. So, Gio, did I not just show you an actual doctor who I literally told you what she said? Like everything I just told you is what she said. You can go listen to her. I'm not making this up for myself. I'm not sitting here telling you guys, I've done the research on this. Here's the evidence. I'm telling you what this doctor said. And I even said, I'm not saying it's true. I'm telling you what she said. The fact that you're immediately jumping up and down, going, oh, well, you don't have the necessary anything to speak on this, you might need to look at that. The fact that you're getting that defensive suggests that there is some kind of bias that isn't quite healthy here. Because you should take this information and say, that's interesting. I'm going to go look into this deeper. I'm going to go look at this more. I'm going to go pay attention to this. I'm going to go see, is there any evidence to this? And to simply say, well, the doctors and the professionals have told me, the doctors and the professionals also told us that COVID is an absolute train smash and we should all get vaccinated. Are you seriously going to tell me that you're just blindly going to trust what the professionals are telling you, right? When I'm giving you another professional that is telling you that the studies don't prove what the professionals are saying broadly. The first thing I would have thought here, and I'll tell you why I say this. I have a family member that suffers from clinical depression. And when I showed them this video, guess what's the first thing they did? This is interesting. I'm going to go research this. That was their first response. They didn't say, you don't have the right to tell this shit to me. How dare you? You don't have the qualifications to speak medically. They took what that doctor said and said, hey, this is interesting. I'll go look into it. There might be something interesting here. Maybe I've been lied to my entire life. Maybe there is something that I don't yet know. Maybe there isn't. Maybe this woman is full of crap, right? Maybe she has it completely wrong. And maybe all the psychologists are absolutely right. I am not telling you this is my findings. It's a video that I watched yesterday that I thought was interesting that I shared with you guys. That's it. If you have a problem, go take it up with her. I told you this is what she said. I'm just not sure why you think I need to have a medical degree to be able to tell you what a doctor said. And that's why I said your reaction confuses me. Because your reaction appears to be offended by something that someone else said. I'm just the messenger here. I'm just telling you what someone else said. I showed you the video so that you can go look for the video yourself and you can inform yourself on what is happening. I never pretended to be a doctor, right? So I find these things interesting. I have a deep distrust of the institutions that tell people things that isn't true. And so when I see these things, I like to share it with you. It's in your name, 1984, Gio. You have it in your name, 1984. You should share the same deep distrust because it might be that you're on a bunch of drugs and it's keeping you locked in a prison that you don't have to be in. Or it could be that these drugs are perfect and they help you. I don't know, right? It's not up to me. I'm not the one making that determination. But it looks like this eunuch inside of this edges of the ocean. Healer, what? I helped someone get off medication. I helped someone get off a medication that made them suicidal. The side effects of coming off it was, you guessed it, suicidal thoughts. Cold turkey is not possible. No, of course not. Almost no drug will be healthy if you just go off cold turkey. And again, I want to make this super clear. I'm not in any way, shape, or form telling people to get off their antidepressants. Right? This should be made absolutely clear. You need to do what you need to do. I'm just saying this is an interesting thing that I saw, and you guys should go look at it, right? Especially if you are on these drugs, it might be helpful. If people tell me, if people tell me you have not studied, I ask if they studied English language, and if not, don't speak it. I do think, and I don't think that's what Gio was the point that Gio was making here, right? I don't want to talk on his behalf, so I don't think Gio was making that point, but I will say the appeal to authority fallacy is a very dangerous one, and if you do ever find yourself in that position, you should get off it, right? Immediately. You don't have to be an authority figure to apply logic and rationality. Like, I don't have to be a nuclear physicist to know that if a physicist told me if I throw you fast enough, I can throw you through a wall without anything happening to you, I could just go, no, you can't, right? That's not going to happen. You're full of crap, right? Or if someone told me, I don't have to be a nuclear physicist for someone to if someone told me, by the way, your positive thoughts have a very big impact on the rest of the world, and you can literally think yourself into prosperity, like that nonsense book that came out a few years ago, for me to go, yeah, I don't believe you. I'm not a nuclear physicist. And of course, I can't say that I studied this stuff, but I do think you're full of crap. Right? I do have a brain. And because I have a brain, I have the ability to think. And because I have the ability to think, I also have the ability to discern. And these things matter, you know? To be a vet, to know what a dog is. The determining how you're doing, sir. Finally getting off my epilepsy medication after a long time. I had tests done and it said I was good. Nice, Lucids. Very happy to hear that. The PA is beating the the PA is beating the DA. I literally heard that as Kathy. I rate that as, but the paw is beating the daw, and that's the problem. I was like, wait, what are we talking about? Who is this dad that's beating someone named Daw? Of all the things I've lost, them is my mind the most. Com Saints, how you doing, sir? Very confusing. Vates are the best doctors for a dog. Can't tell the Vates what's wrong with it. Bandit, how you doing, sir? Pierce is a pompous liberal flip flopper. I definitely agree with that. My cousin nearly died going cold turkey off benzodiazepine. His psych didn't wean him off like supposed to. He landed in hospital. Yeah. I mean, look, everyone has sort of horror stories of drugs going really bad. And as far as you know, benzodiazepine is like really addictive in the first place. So why anyone would be put on that is obviously it's obviously a big thing. Be aggressively apologetic about your past. You go, what? I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I wanted to I think there was something else I wanted to show you guys, but let me quickly look through. Let me look through my social media here. Oh, do you guys want to see a little bit of good news? I show you guys so much bad news that maybe a little bit of good news is in order, I think. We need companies like this in South Africa. We need companies like this. The JB and family, we've received increasing requests to certify our beef as halal. As Christians, we respectfully decline and focus exclusively on regenerative agriculture, restoring soil health, enhancing biodiversity, and producing exceptional beef, while keeping religious and ideological certifications out of our operation. Do you agree with our decision? Yes. We need companies like this in South Africa. We need supermarkets that refuse to do halal certification on their food. We need farmers that refuse to do halal certification on their food. We need companies to stand up and say no. No. Do you guys know how much I've had to, like, I no longer go to my barber that I used to go to because they're Muslim and I refuse to support them. When I walk into a store, I will only take something that was halal certified if there's literally no other option, and then sometimes I'll just leave it. Luckily, the shop close to me don't really have a lot of halal certified stuff, and even their meat isn't halal certified because they themselves are also Christian. But there are products that's just halal certified, and the reason I don't support this isn't because I hate Muslims. It's because halal money goes straight to, in my opinion, very bad elements. Very, very, very bad elements. The issue is that all of that money that goes into mosques, where does that money go? The money that goes into these halal organizations, where does that money go? I have no guarantee that they're not funding, Hamas and all of these terrorist organizations around the world with the money that they get from these halal purchases. And so I want more companies like this in South Africa. So these guys are in America, Lucids. JB and family. Let me see if I can hold up. I'll quickly bring it up. Stop sharing. It's the only thing that I need to figure out, but I'll quickly show you. So these are the guys. If you're in America, the Provision House is what they're called. Intelligent and trustworthy people in our lives to be not depressed. We have a guy at our church that's actually building a company, a really good guy, Ben. He's building a company that works with farmers to replace nitro fertilizers with actual biofertilizers. So it's a biological product that removes the need for any artificial fertilization and just helps with regenerative farming. He's busy building the company up from the ground. So there's some really big things already happening here in South Africa. Some stuff that I'm really excited for. The halal food products have become a point of contention. Imagine if the Christian world plastered Christian all over the food products. There would be retaliation to no end. Geo, 100%. And I think the thing that bothers me about this most is the fact that we don't know what happens to that money, right? Because it is fundamentally a money-making scheme. The whole thing, because every single time you want to sell a product, remember it has to be halal. You have to pay an organization. I can't remember what their name is now, but there's an organization in South Africa. You have to pay them to have the halal sticker on your product. To be able to say that it is halal, they have to be paid for every single product that you sell. This is nonsense, especially if you consider we don't have that many Muslims living in this country. Right? Islam is not that big of a religion in this country. So then the question is, why the hell is half of the products that you buy in a store halal? Like, what the hell is this? Apparently, a lot of Spar products are not halal. Personally, I would love a list of companies who don't support halal with their products, as I would support them. Mark, that's exactly it. I want more companies in this country to stand up and say, look, we don't support halal. We don't care if Muslims buy our products or not. We'll sell our products to everyone else. I will go out of my way to start buying that product. Like, if a company stood up tomorrow and said, guys, we don't support halal, our products aren't halal, if Muslims don't want to buy it, they don't have to. I'd be like, there's my new product. Even if that's not the product I always use, that'll be my new product. Because I want people to stand up for Western values. I want people to care about Western values. If you're a Muslim and you don't have anything to eat, go to Muslim countries. You don't have to live here, right? Like, you don't have to live here. And if you really want Muslim stuff, grow your own shit. Go to your own butcheries. Go buy your own meat. Like, why should everyone else's stuff be turned into stuff that you can eat? I don't understand that. This is, by the way, one of the reasons I hate human rights. Human rights is the biggest load of BS that has ever existed. Tragically, if you visit any of the big name, tragically, if you visit any of the big name supermarkets, basically all products that you see on the shelf is halal certified. True. So true. False doctrine. If not, it's not even about the money for me. I just don't support subjugating my culture. Hey, Mark Magic, thank you so much for the super sticker, sir. Really appreciate the 35 Rand donations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are far too kind, especially on this Friday. I really appreciate the donations. You said yesterday that you designed for a company in Namibia. Yeah, I personally, man, I'm going to make a video on human rights. I'm going to make a video on human rights because if you guys knew just how bad human rights actually is, you'd understand why I hate it so much. Like, dude, human rights was literally invented to subvert law, order, and culture. See you guys later. Going on a hike with my Belgium Malinois. Have fun. Tiger Snakes, take care of yourself, sir. I'm going to go soon as well. I support Escort. I have a friend who worked for Escort for a very long time. I like Escort as well. They make most of the products in South Africa anyways, and a lot of it is pork. And as far as I know, you can't bless pork. So, bacon for the win. Every time I have a comment, a comment war with a Muslim, I just mentioned that there is not one Muslim country that is prosperous. The world countries are deserts too. Ali Tabrizi did a video on it. Yeah, that's not wrong. I feed a small family of lizards. They were basking on my window. They have more right to be in my place than illegal immigrants. Siege garden, true. Democracy is just as bad. Mob rule. Turks you will not get me to disagree with that. You will not get me to disagree with that. I am not a fan of democracy. I'm not a fan of human rights. I believe you have common law for a reason, right? The law is the law, and everyone is equal under the law. That's it. I further believe, and I will make a video on this. Rights used to be duties. You had a duty to treat people with respect and dignity. People didn't have a right to respect and dignity. You had a duty. Duty meant that this was placed on the individual. Rights mean that it's suddenly placed on the group on behalf of the individual. It's tyranny. That's what human rights is. It's tyranny. Because now, no matter how disrespectful or idiotic or stupid you have a right to dignity. I say, wait, why do you have a right? What are you talking about? You are an absolute parasite. And you have a right to dignity? In what universe do you have a right to dignity? If you're a criminal, you have human rights. You must be treated fairly and humanely and within bullshit. You're a criminal. You have no rights. As a criminal, you must suffer the full extent of the law. And look, I'm not for the humane treatment of criminals at all. You gave up that privilege, because it's not a right, it's a privilege. You gave that up when you broke the law. It's as simple as that. But you see, human rights literally protects the wicked and the evil from the good. It punishes the good in order to protect the evil. That's human rights. Ichimaro, how you doing, bro? I think democracy works, but only between like-minded groups. Once you mix culture, religion, then it's like the biggest one wins, and that's where it fails. So even on that, democracy definitely works better when you have a single dominant culture and the democracy sort of confined to that single dominant culture. But it it ultimately crumbles. And I still have to do the research on this, so don't take my word for it. This I have not yet researched. But I need to go look into the authors of modern democracy. Because the democracy that we have today, people like to say democracy is 2,000 years old or more than 2,000 years old because they like to refer back to Rome and to Greece. But the democracy that Rome and Greece had is not even close to the same as the democracy that we have today. Because the democracy we have today is far closer to the kings of England. The president is effectively an elected king that can do whatever the hell he wants. And government is effectively the House of Lords, where those who are placed above all of us get to make all the decisions. Starkey, I can't remember his name now, but Starkey, he's a British guy, super interesting. He spoke about this, and he highlighted this. The system, the entire system of democracy. I need to go look at who created the modern democracy as it exists, and I'm almost willing to bet it's not good people. I'm willing to bet you it's not good people that invented it. It's sort of like the feminist movement. The woman that invented the feminist movement was a child molester. The woman that popularized abortion was a massive Nazi racist that used abortion to try and get rid of black people. Right? These things were not invented by good people. And so from my perspective, I'm almost willing to bet that it's going to be the same for democracy. The democracy that you and I today know as democracy, right? The voting for a president and for political parties. From my perspective, it is a wickedness and an evil that even with like-minded groups can only work for a short period of time. It will eventually fail. Yes, the Planned Parenthood founder wanted babies not to exist. True. It's kind of social democracy, isn't it? Autocratic republic would be great. I'm personally so the what do you mean with it's kind of social democracy, Shanta? So Turks Fay, I am autocratic, but and this is where I sort of hate political tastes. So I am a firm believer in autocracy. I believe that people should be autocratic. I believe the government should be libertarian. The government should remain out of people's business as much as possible. People should be autocratic. And what I mean by that is if I want to have a town where we do not allow gay marriage and we do not allow LGBTQ stuff, we should be autocratic about that. We will not allow this. Go live somewhere else if you don't want to. The government, if it's your body, it's your life. Do whatever you want, right? We're not going to interfere. The government should be limited to the interference of national interest. So if another country wants to attack us, sure, let the government get involved there. And where children are involved, the government should be involved because children can't protect themselves. But for all else, I believe that people should be autocratic in the protection of their own values, whichever way those values want to play itself out. I would even make the argument if a bunch of Muslims came together in South Africa and formed a town and decided that Sharia law was going to exist in that town, that's their right. They have a right to be, Sharia law adherents. But yeah, so I have weird views. My views are sort of broken into compartments rather than just broadly calling myself conservative or whatever. Glad Jesus doesn't judge by actions, but by our spoken words. Healer, Jesus does judge our actions as well, not just spoken words. Everything, whether it's words or whether it's actions, if you don't know Jesus and if you have not received salvation, you're going to be judged no matter what. Piers Morgan is a rage baiter or a moron. Juanita, you're not wrong. And everything inside of minds and hearts. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Paul says in, I believe it's Corinthians, but I might be wrong on that. But Paul speaks about how the ledger for our iniquities have been nailed to the cross. So the physical ledger where our sins are written down has been nailed to the cross. So our sins are no longer remembered if we are in Christ, right? So if we have given our hearts to Christ. If you have not given your heart to Christ, you're judged for the things you do, you're judged for the things you think, you're judged for the things you say, because God is fair and God is just, and therefore everyone must be judged. Democracy is the base of a whole load of crappy options. Lamborghini, I don't necessarily agree with that. I understand the premise, but I don't necessarily agree. I think we as humans buy into the end of history way too quickly. We sort of think, well, democracy is the best of a bad system, or a bad bunch of systems. But do we really know that? Do you not think that there might be an even better system? Like if we just applied ourselves, we could probably think of a better system. Because remember, the system that we are trying to create isn't the perfect system. We can't create the perfect system. The system we're trying to create is a system that slows down the corruption the most. That's the only system that you and I could ever really create. There's going to be corruption. There's going to be greed. There's going to be inequality. There's going to be suffering. There's nothing we can do about that. We're trying to come up with the system that limits the greed, the corruption, the suffering to the utmost. So, for example, and I'll give you guys this. Let's say, and this is how it works, right? If you're a conservative, or rather, I should say, if you adhere to the constrained vision of humanity, you understand that every system that you build is gonna have a trade-off, right? There's going to be trade-offs. There's nothing you can do about it. So take the free market, for example. When you go by the free market, you know that it's going to create ultra rich people and it's going to create ultra poor people. There's nothing you can do about that. That's going to happen. The question that you ask as a person that adheres to the constrained vision is, which of the systems that we can have will deliver the most amount of prosperity for the most amount of people? Knowing that every system is going to be a trade-off. So if we had a full communist system where the government is in charge of the market, that's going to have a trade-off. There's going to be things that happen in that system that you can't help. You're not going to make everyone equally rich, as is the evidence is everywhere, right? Even the communist Chinese have not been able to make everyone rich. In fact, over 800,000 Chinese live in abject poverty in China. The idea that China has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in the last 2 decades is false. China have lifted some people out of poverty, but the overwhelming majority of Chinese still live in abject poverty, because that's the nature of communism. You have to accept, even in a communist system, you're going to be able to make some people very, very rich, and everyone else is going to be dirt poor. Because communism does not create middle classes, because the middle class is problematic. So communism is fine with some people being very rich. It's brilliant with a lot of people being very poor. It does not like the middle class. The free market says, well, you're going to have some people that's very rich anyways. You're going to have some people that's very poor, but you're going to have a lot of people that is middle class, that is earning a living. And even the poorest of the poor is going to be better off in a free market than what they would have been in a communist system. And so the free market is the system. It's not perfect. It's not going to make everyone equal because people have different skills and different talents, but it's the base system we have, right? We understand that. In the same way, our political system needs to operate. This isn't the perfect system we have. Perhaps there's a better one that limits the corruption, because that's the only reason the free market system is the base system. It's not because it's, perfect, but it limits corruption. The free market system allows for people to freely influence their own lives. And so no one has the right to kill your ability to build your own business. You can, if you don't like what Amazon is doing, you can build a competitor to Amazon. It's going to be hard. Let no one tell you it's going to be easy. It's going to be hard, but you have to do it, right? That's just how it works. You have to do it. In a communist system, you don't have that right. If you don't like, Alibaba or what's that other company called that they have now, Shein or Temu, well, too bad. The government decides who can and cannot do business. And if you're not in the government, if you don't have the government's ear, then you're not doing business. Simple as. So we have the free market because it limits corruption. Now, if you had a government that actually took this seriously, they would punish those who are corrupt. Of course, we don't live in that system. In our system, corruption is celebrated. This is why you have such a bad economy. This is why the economy in South Africa doesn't grow, because it's not meant to grow. Because a growing economy would mean competition for the Ruperts of the world. And the Ruperts do not want economic growth because more competition means less money and more work that they have to put in. So that's why the system in South Africa is designed perfectly to ensure that everyone remains poor. The government gives out grants to the poor. That those grants make Rupert rich, and everyone's happy, right? And exactly as intended, it makes a powerful, rich elite and the rest in poverty and kills tons of people. Mega true. Democracy inside of cultural groups like-minded societies is the least flawed system, which gives people the option to choose their leaders. Anyone can also put their hand up to become a leader. Sonic, but do you not think that there is a better system? Are you telling me that there is just no system that can compete with democracy? Let me run a system by you guys, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. Okay? What if this is going to be so much longer than I thought. Do we have time for this? Because I have to go through a lot of things. Okay, what if you I'm trying to think if there's a quick way to explain this, because this is the result of years of planning and years of strategizing. I've spent years building this system. Trying to think, is there an easy way? Okay, so you divide the government into three spheres. You have municipal, you have provincial, and you have national. Provincial has the most power. Municipal has the most power. Provincial has the second most power. National has the least power. Taxes start at the municipal level. The province taxes the municipality, and the national government taxes the province. The national government and the provincial government has no power over the individual. So that's how far national government is removed from the citizen. Then, on the municipal level, the municipality doesn't have the power over the citizens. The council of the neighborhoods have the power over their own neighborhoods, and those councils then serve in the municipality. The only people you can vote for are your councillors. You will elect your councillors to be your councillors. Those councillors then serve in the municipal at the municipal level. In the provincial level, the municipalities of every single town in the province will send a representative from the municipality to the provincial legislature to represent that municipality. The provinces will send a representative from themselves, you don't vote for that, from themselves to the national legislature to represent the province on the national level. The president is voted for once and then never again. You vote for a president and he remains the president until the people decide that they no longer want him as president. There's no voting every 5 years. There's no voting every 10 years. There's voting when the people are unhappy. So if a president is doing his job well, he can be president for his entire life. If a president is doing a bad job, he could be president for a year. Doesn't matter, right? Elections are started by a number of things. So first, the people can draw up a petition. If a petition, dependent on the population size, gets 1 million or 2 or 3 or 4 million votes, that petition then goes to Congress or to Parliament. Parliament then investigates the petition. The petition can only pass if it is found that no group paid or influenced this system in any way, shape, or form. So you can't have Open Society Network from George Soros or any of these sort of shady organizations that paid a bunch of people to sign this petition. So Parliament investigates this petition. The petition has to have a clear reason why they believe the president should be replaced. And in the Constitution, that will include things like broken promises. That will include things like lying. That will include things like treason against the country. That will include things like making decisions that harm the country. So the people can allege something that the president did. They can write up a petition on the thing that they did, and then people can sign it. If you get 1 million votes, that then goes to the Parliament, and Parliament investigates it. If it is found that the petition is sound, that petition is then passed on to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court looks at one thing and one thing alone, and that is, or the High Court here in South Africa, they look at the legality of the petition. In other words, are the people just wanting new elections because they don't like the president's face? Well, that's not a constitutional requirement. The president doesn't have to be a model, and therefore the petition will be thrown out because it is not constitutionally sound. If the petition alleges that the president lied, and the constitutional court finds that there is enough prima facie evidence to suggest that the president may have lied. So they don't have to prove that the president did lie. There just needs to be enough prima facie evidence that the president may have lied. The Supreme Court then okays the petition goes back to Parliament, and an election date is set. On that election date, all the people in the country will go vote for their next president. The president will be voted for directly, not from a political party. It will be a president, a man that wants to run for president. He will be voted for. Once he is elected, he is now president, and he remains president until people feel that he should be removed as the president of the country. So as long as he's doing a good job, he remains the president and he can do whatever he wants. The same is true for councillors. The same is true for your provincial and all the rest of it. They remain in charge until such time that the people feel that they're no longer being represented by this person. This person is no longer doing the job that they voted for. That would be a system that I think works far better than the democracy that we have today, right? People like to think of democracy as just the ability to vote for those who represent you. The democracy that we have today is far more than that, right? It's an entire rigid system of how we vote. I'm not looking to remove the ability for people to vote. I'm looking to remove democracy. because I don't believe that this democracy works. You can still vote for people, but the democracy that we have at the moment, that's not working. So I think that's where the disconnect comes. People think that when you say, I don't want democracy, they think, oh, so you don't want people to vote. No, the system that we live in today that is known as democracy, I think is sick. I don't think it works. Right. And so as a result, I believe there is a better way to do it. Is that going to fix things? No, of course not. You're never going to fix things, right? Nothing's going to be perfect. But I do think that that system takes care of the majority of the failures. People enough choice. We get to elect a party, not a leader. Sonic, yeah. That's one of the things that I would immediately change. But what do you guys think of that system? Oh, and by the way, in this system, if you're a prisoner, you don't get to vote. If you work for the government, you don't get to vote. If you work for the government, and this is very important. If you are a worker for the government, in other words, you are not elected, you cannot work for the government for longer than 8 years. They do have term limits because they're not elected. And so you can't have someone unelected just sort of running around doing whatever the hell they want. The unelected people can't do anything. Basically have the founders of the USA system. Yes, but more rigid, I think. If you don't pay tax, you don't get to vote. No Sasso grant voters. Yeah, that goes without saying. Me as king will work better, and you are all my peasants. Kubis, I'm gonna say no thanks on that one. Like, if you're gonna elect me as president, I am as king. I am okay with that. I will accept a king, provided that I can be the king. If I cannot be the king, I don't think that we should have a king. We don't have democracy in our homes. It runs better than the government. Two people came together to create a home. Autocratic, forced marriage is democracy. True. It can work. That's what I call improved democracy. The system must evolve and improve. Yeah, I agree. Any system will have its weaknesses. We need like a strongman law enforcement agency that works independently from politics to police these politicians. So Lamborghini, if we're going into deeper parts of this, because I've already thought of that, along with these rigid systems of government, the government will also, the Constitution will empower things like civil groups. So, for example, right now, if you want to sell a product, you have to be SAB certified. There's no reason for that. There's no reason why the civilian population can't have their own organizations that take care of food safety of products, things of that nature. So you will empower organizations that take care of things like building safety, that take care of things like product safety. All of these things will be done. Health, for example. Is it really necessary for the government to tell you that a drug is safe for people to take? No. The government is incapable of even doing that. You can have civil organizations that do a far better job of it. And that civil organization people can trust. Because if that civil organization drops the ball, people can sue that civil organization. If a civil organization tells you this drug is safe, and then it turns out that this drug is not safe, you can sue them. If the government tells you a drug is safe and it turns out the drug isn't safe, guess what? You can't sue them. Guess what happens to all of those people that are suffering COVID vaccine injuries? They are not allowed to sue the pharmaceutical companies. Why? Because the governments of the world signed away the ability to sue pharmaceutical companies. They are immune from legislation. What the hell is that? If you empower civil organizations to do that job, you will get far more oversight. You will get a far better product and a service from these civil organizations because they can't do what they do through force. They have to do their jobs. People have to trust them. So if I, for example, decided to build the, if I decided to build Good later. How are you doing, sir? If I decided to build a civil organization that judges and accredits universities. So let's say, for example, I find an organization. It's called the South African University Accreditation Organization, right? And I go to universities and I test their syllabuses. I test their degrees. I give students tests to figure out what have they learned and is it on par with international? Is it ahead of international? How does it play out, right? And then I put on their websites, I allow them to put a stamp that says that they have accreditation from me, A plus plus, A plus, A, B, C, D. C, D, E means that it will not be internationally recognized. A plus 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 means that it's the best in the world, right? And I give that accreditation. If I tell you that Tukkies is A plus plus and you send your child there to learn how to be a doctor, and your child comes home and tells you, by the way, mom, do you have a headache? Because I can just quickly drill a hole into your skull to release the pressure. Then you know, wait, I think his organization lied. They gave the medical department of Tukkies an A plus plus, but my child is being taught medical practices from the 1800s. So clearly, they're not as good as this organization said. What this means is where Tukkies may have been willing to pay for my accreditation because people of this country put trust and faith in my organization, Tukkies will now turn around and say, your stamp means nothing. So we're not going to pay you to get your little digital mark to tell people that we're a good university because people don't trust you. In fact, you're having the opposite effect. This is a way I believe that you can get things to work far better. Got a rooster shot by mistake, and I'm up at the crack of dawn. Bad ladle, how you doing? We all need to be beautiful kings of our own lives first before we can overlord our kingship over others. USA on way. I don't agree with that at all. I think I will make a phenomenal king. I think you guys just need to elect me king, and then let me fix the problems of this country once and for all. I promise you, you'll be happy. You'll all love it. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to leave now. It's been absolute crazy fun to hang out with all of you. It's been a fun Friday, but we're already here for well over 2 hours. And so I have to go buy food. I have to go do some shopping before the weekend. So what day is it today? We'll see each other. Yeah, literally, I will be streaming again on the 30th. So hopefully on the 30th, I'm telling you that everything seems to be going well, or I'm telling you guys it's burning down. Run for the hills, run for your lives. I will see all of you again on Tuesday. I'll probably have videos on Monday for you, but I will be live again on Tuesday. And I think for our first stream on StreamYard, it went pretty well, right? I kind of thought it went well. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Please make a video on your system. Echo, I will get my thoughts really well put into sort of order, and then I will make a video on it. Maybe put that out, or maybe I'll write an article and put it on Patreon, because maybe an article would be better, and then I'll make a video on it. The determining, no, this wasn't on OBS. This was on StreamYard. Stefan, go to HH Bacon in Gans. HH Bacon in Gans. Where the hell is that? In Gans. HH Meat Factory. Wait, that's in Strand? Meat Factory. I already love it. I love the word meat factory. It just sounds good. Where is it? Do they have a picture of the outside of this building? Man, they do have some good looking food here. Hold up. Let me show you guys what I'm looking at. There's some good looking food here. Um, I just can't see the outside of it. So I'm not sure if I know where this place is. I do love these things though. These bacon bombs, they're really good. They are really good. Okay, I'm gonna go check this out because I'm actually probably gonna be driving to go buy food now, so I may as well go check it out. HH Meat Factory. Love the name. Absolutely love the name. All right. As they say, it's never far from bright time. Truth. Um, it's a Dutch process butchery. Okay, I'll go check it out. There's a place, Shanta, that you can try if you're interested. You know Strand Main Road? So Strand Main Road, there's a fuel station, a garage that's closed down. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, when you drive in the main road, you'll see there's this garage and it's completely fenced off. Right? Right opposite that fenced garage, there's a place called the Biltong Spains. It's this old guy and his wife, the loveliest people you'll ever meet, right? Absolutely brilliant people. They're from the Free State. And he makes all of his own biltong, all of his own meat. He has like a mini butchery basically inside this little store. It's really tiny, but he has all of these different kinds of sausages, and he makes his own Viennas as well. He makes all of it himself, and it is super high quality and really tasty. It's like really, really good. So, and his biltong, in my opinion, is the best in the entire Cape Town. I hate the biltong in Cape Town. I I'm from the north. I'm spoiled because the biltong in the north is prima. I don't like the biltong here. This guy has biltong like it is in the north. Nice, tasty, fatty. He's really, really good. So go check them out if you are in the Helderberg region. Go to the main road. Go to Biltong Spains. Tell them I sent you because they also watch my content. Really good guys. Really good people. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. I just really love helping them out because I knew them from like the first week that they opened up, and they were sort of struggling in the beginning, and now it's going really well for them. So yeah, just happy to see them do well. As always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for spending your day with me. I hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. Thank you so much to everyone that decided to bless this channel with donations, the new members of the channel. Thank you so much. I truly cannot tell you how much that means to me. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, be good to each other, be kind to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.